more than anything else, the progress we have to continue to make to really integrate not just our workforce, the courts, but our workplaces as well. So that's my reaction to it, and I agree with you. And this has been said before and already that she sort of didn't appreciate being called the middle, but are serving as that role. But the reality is like that doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
You know, the court has been so transformed since she left in just that short period of time. It's incredibly remarkable. So so that's really how I'm seeing her death is, this beacon for women all over the world, symbolizing the promise that women could bring to the transformative nature that women bring to these places and spaces, the progress we have left to go, and really the turmoil we're seeing on the court right now, where there is no middle, where we're going now. It seems like the court is swinging all the way back, far, far to the right.
Yeah, Leslie, I wanted to sort
and not align with the American people.
Kind of continue with that vein, Ashley, when we talk about sort of the shifting political sands. When she was first nominated, there was a sense that, oh my gosh, a woman on the court, it's going to upend everything. And then she kind of turned out to be what they call a classic conservative. But as you point out, Vlad, I don't know if she would be considered that anymore, Leslie.
Not anymore. It's interesting. You think about her opinions on gun rights. I think consistently she would still be looking at states' rights, protecting states' rights, giving them the majority there. But on a lot of these issues, and including what the court is seeing today, it's hard to say. I'd agree with Ashley. It's hard to say you have that center that was really thoughtful in what she called her worthwhile, doing worthy work, and sensitive to that. She wasn't going to, kind of cower away from her opinion, but she brought a deeper understanding of a broader spectrum of people, not just women. And I think that's what is really remarkable and inspiring. And it's also a little bit lost. I think it's the part that we lean into is wanting a more diversified court that has a diverse view of this country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ashley.
No, I was going to say, Anne Marie, to your point, I mean, I work for the two most powerful women in politics, and people continue to make jokes about women serving in these high elected, powerful positions to this very day. It didn't sort of begin and end with Sandra Day O'Connor. These jokes continue, sort of not just jokes, but underestimating and devaluing women leaders continues to this very day. And that's a problem. And so I always cherish these women who go in and they're the first, they have the hardest jobs, but they establish a new ground, a higher ground and foundation for all of us to stand on. And so they deserve a lot of credit for that. But there is still this sentiment within our country that women, again, Nikki Haley's facing this as well. Women are not prepared for these jobs, that it's hard for the nation to see women in these high, powerful positions. And that's regrettable. But hats off to the women who raise those troubles.
No, I think that's so right, that the idea when she was first appointed was that being a woman would have sort of a greater influence on her ability to, come to decisions on these cases, and that she would be influenced by the fact that she was a woman. And yes, I'm sure she was to a certain degree, but she also had a very clear philosophy on how the Constitution should be interpreted, and that's where her decisions landed.
I also think it's interesting to consider the fact that she served on the court for 24 years, which seems short when you think about the number of justices who've served for much longer.
Yeah.
And in the conversation that many Americans are having right now, for example, around the age of the President of the United States, for example, it's interesting to contrast Sandra Day O'Connor deciding to retire after 24 years to care for her then ailing husband, and, for example, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who, rightly or wrongly, some people on the left criticize for having overstayed her time on the court, which led to a Republican president being able to nominate a conservative, extreme conservative justice to the court. Ashley, I don't know what you think about that. Not about the politics of Sandra Day O'Connor or even Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but just the idea of knowing when it's time to hang up your hat and move on to other things.
I'm not sure why I'm always asked this question.
So we can ask both of you. Let's let both of you
No, it's
opine.
fine. You're talking about Joe Biden's age. Nancy Pelosi's too old. Like, no,
But you see my point. The point that I guess I'm sort of grasping with, and it's because this is sort of breaking news, so my thoughts are not fully formed. Yeah. But it's the notion that for example, in the case of RBG. The fact that she chose to stay on the court until practically the end of her life had repercussions for Americans across the country.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And, there's still some sentiment within the Democratic Party and the Democratic apparatus, where people are still very upset about that. But, putting that aside, I think also what's missing about this conversation about women leaders is that, what Sandra Day O'Connor did was leave her job to go and care for her family. That's Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't have those same challenges, but that's something that women have to contend with. We want to lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg has said, but we also have these other obligations that we have to take care of. And so that's what I take away from Sandra Day O'Connor's story, which is this duality, this dual responsibility that women have, not just to lean into their careers, but also to be the caregiver and to take care of their families. I think Leslie pointed that out as well about her, that being a remarkable aspect of her life. But we see that all the time. And I've seen that working for powerful women before. I mean, the speaker was a doting, wife and mother and grandmother, and watching her sort of move from conversations about the war in Syria to who's going to pick up the grandkids from school was, and her being able to manage it all was pretty fascinating. So, and I think that's a part of the story about women leaders that isn't quite told often enough, because if we did, I think it would sort of cement in people's mind that women are, to some degree, quite superior, and are more prepared than men to manage all of these, the challenges that come along with these big jobs.
Even after, when you're talking about sort of staying on the job until the job doesn't want you anymore, almost, what she also found was that there was incredible service to be found beyond that. She was very committed to civics and teaching young people about how this government works. And she's the founder of this website called iCivics.org, and it's dedicated to helping teachers teach their kids about the nature of government, their role in government, what they can do, that there's plenty of ways to serve and to continue to serve outside of the Supreme Court or other positions that you've been appointed to.
Emery,
yeah.
On that point, I think agreeing with Ashley and kind of turning another page on this, the issue that we're talking about right now is that in so many ways, Justice O'Connor did this on her terms, right? She made those choices. That's what worked for her. And I think, unfortunately, in politics, it's like, oh, we don't agree with that choice, or she should have stayed longer, or, if she was a man, she would have stayed till the end, or, you can use the different examples. But the truth is, she understood her impact. And she understood that the next generation, and she talked about that extensively, really needed a command of civics and engagement, because that was the concern, so that we didn't fall into the same kind of challenges that her generation or previous generations had, is to have these competent new generations who could engage at any level. And I find that really remarkable, and it continues to live on in the work she did.
All right, we are going to take a quick break. Ashley and Leslie, as always, we appreciate your insight on everything, ranging from the things that we were talking about, which we started talking about George Santos, to pivoting to the breaking news and looking back at Sandra Day O'Connor's legacy, the first woman nominated to the Supreme Court. She was a rancher's daughter. She had enormous power over American law for many, many years before her retirement. 24 years after she was nominated, she has died. We'll have more on the life and legacy of Sandra Day O'Connor a little bit later, but we're also minutes away from that expulsion vote for Congressman George Santos. We're covering that for you too. Stick around.
Well, let me start with this.
This really happened.
Have you told the government?
Did any of that make sense?
What's your response?
You want me to just
What's
keep
wrong
going?
with that argument?
What have you learned?
Do you know why?
Why?
Why?